Hello there. Today I'm delighted to be looking at a Gewurztraminer from Domaine Weinbach. This is their Altenbourg Gewurztraminer from 2020. Historic estate, Domaine Weinbach. Evidently it means wine river. There was a small stream ran through the property, and that's what it's named after. But it was founded in 1612 as a monastic property by the Capuchin monks, and was in their hands until it was bought by the Faller family in 1898. And the Fallers have run the estate ever since as a wine estate. Today the estate is owned and run by Catherine Faller and her sons Theo and Eddie. And I think it's fair to argue that they have, they're one of a handful of top producers from the Alsace region of France. They have quite a simple philosophy that I like the way they put it in terms of making quality wine. They say to make quality wine you need great sites, or good terroir as you would say in French, old vines and low yields. And beyond that, they think everything is sort of fairly straightforward. In terms of the vineyards they have the Altenbourg, they have a walled vineyard called the Clos Capucins, and they have other vineyards in the Vogelgarten. So all good sites, and then they have 5 named Grand Crus as well. So some really good vineyard resources there that are the keystone to making these wines. In terms of their practices, the family were one of the first to practice organic and biodynamic viticulture, certainly in the Alsace region, and they've been quite evangelical about that as well. So they started using biodynamic practices in the vineyards, experimenting with it in 1998, and by 2005 they were entirely biodynamic, and today they're certified as organic by Biodevan and as biodynamic by Demeter. So everything is now made completely biodynamically. In terms of the site, the Altenbourg, or the bit of the vineyard that's used for this, it's a sloping vineyard site somewhere between about 225 and 250 metres above sea level. The bottom half of the vineyard is used to produce a wine called Gewurztraminer Cuvée Lawrence. They also grow a little bit of Pinot Noir and Pinot Gris here. And above the Altenbourg site is the Furstentum Grand Cru. So the soil types are similar to Furstentum. They're a marly, calcareous sandstone soil, but Altenbourg has slightly more sand actually in the soils, and so ripens slightly earlier. I guess it means that the soils will be slightly warmer. As far as winemaking is concerned, in the winery they try to be as sort of minimally interventional as possible, or that's the way they express it anyway. Everything is hand-picked. Gewurztraminer doesn't take well to being machine-picked, to be honest. It's gently pressed in a pneumatic press. The juice is settled, and it's allowed to ferment in old oak ovals with its natural yeasts. The wine has some sweetness left in it, so I assume that it's allowed to stop, or is stopped perhaps with the addition of salt, sulphur and chilling, but they don't give details as to how that was affected. The wine stays in these big old oak casks for up to 10 months, and is then bottled with the slightest addition of sulphur. They justify that by saying that's necessary to ensure that the wines will survive being shipped around and to allow them to age. So really quite a straightforward method of production. So let's see what the wines taste like, shall we? Have a look at that. The colour is relative, has a reasonable intensity. It's a medium yellow. There are sort of greenish hints, I guess. There's not any coloration that you can sometimes get with Gewurztraminer. Sometimes it'll take a little bit of almost pinkish colour. The aromas. Gewurztraminer is famous for having these lifted terpene aromas, and if you think of rose petals, that sort of and the slightly high tone notes of Turkish Delight, again flavoured with rose petals. It's those lifted floral notes are really quite vivid in here, and they're vivid, but because they're so delicate, they're not actually powerful, and yet there's a reasonable intensity there. So a slightly oily note as well. So let's taste. The front of the mouth, the wine's immediately apparent the wine is fairly sweet. I mean, the notes I've seen suggest this had 35 grams per litre of sugar. I'm actually surprised that's not a higher number, but the wine has very soft acidity, so there isn't a sharpness to balance the sweetness. So it's possible that that's the case, but you've got that sort of lovely rose petal note. It's quite delicate. There's almost a sort of slightly sherbety note to the whole thing as well on the front of mouth. It's light to medium bodied. It's not got a sort of a honeyed, oily texture yet. That may develop a little, but the wine is quite fresh. It's allowing those sort of lifted floral notes to come out. There is a relative amount of fresh acidity just coming through at the back, but this isn't a high acid wine at all. It's much more driven by its delicate aromas. The alcohol on the label says it's 13.5%. It doesn't seem quite that hot, to be honest. I mean, given its sort of light to medium body, it's not entirely apparent that there's that much alcohol in there. Perhaps the sugar and the beautiful flavours there are balancing that out nicely. And it's just allowing sweet touches to come through on the finish. Not necessarily sweetness, but there are sweet touches, and you've got those sort of lovely perfumed blossom notes, just re-showing themselves again on the tongue. It's that delicate, almost sort of with a sort of a sherbety note. There's a slight dancing vitality to them as well. So yes, I think that's I think perhaps that's a wine that could do with a little bit more H, and the flavours will become richer. Certainly the texture will become a little richer. But in terms of the sort of the delicacy and the beautiful, clean Gewurztraminer rose petal style that is absolutely typical of this variety, I think that's showing that really nicely now at the moment. So yes, that was Domaine Weinbach's Altenbourg Gewurztraminer 2020. So I hope you've enjoyed watching the video. I do hope you'll follow our channel. Please feel free to like and share the video, but most importantly, do join us again sometime soon. Bye now.